Hi, I've spoken before about how the Rogue Trader edition of the Warhammer 40,000 rulebook had rules in it for vehicles, but very few actual photos of model vehicles inside it. And that was because the intention was to use models that were part of the designer's own collections. But at the time, there were few kits available from Games Workshop, and the models that the designers had made either were made from kits that were no longer available, so gamers couldn't reproduce them easily, or they'd been made from toys that were easily identifiable as somebody else's intellectual property. So instead of photos of model vehicles, Games Workshop opted for original artwork in the vehicle rules section. And amongst those is this rather interesting looking tracked fighting vehicle. And in this video, I am going to be making a 3D model of this vehicle compatible with Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader Vintage rules. The first decision to be made was how big was I going to make this model? And I have actually seen a fan sculpt based on this design, which presents it as an armoured personnel carrier for a squad of troops, so about the size of a Rhino or a Chimera. But given the way I can see members of the crew sticking out at the top, I don't think this vehicle is actually meant to be that large. I think this is a lighter utility vehicle used to give mobility to a heavy weapon, quite similar to the old universal carrier of World War II vintage. So I'm going to base the size more on something like this, which will make it a more compact vehicle. And I've produced my 1:1 scale plan and elevation drawings to show how I'm going to make it. And then, of course, in my traditional fashion, I made a simple card prototype so I could see roughly what my design would look like in 3 dimensions. And given that I was satisfied with this, with its enclosed fore end and open rear section, I then reproduced this in plasticard. And this is the basic core of this vehicle. If I move that out of the way, you can see how I've taken that and produced that. And now I'm ready to start detailing it. And here is the detailed model. And as usual, a lot of the details are just made from small pieces of plasticard cut to the right size and shape before being glued to the main hull. But I've also used some other components. For example, the cannon mounted on the top is made from various thicknesses of plastic tubing, whilst the slightly flared muzzle is the very top from a bottle of super glue. I use that much super glue, might as well get some use from one of the empty bottles. And then there's a bit of brass strip to mount these 2 outer modules. And there's some wire coiled around the back of the gun. Now for the track sections, which aren't glued on yet, because I want to paint them first, the wheels are all made from washers, and the sort of spring assemblies here, these are M2 thickness nylon screws, and all of those are then just mounted in plasticard for both the left and right assemblies. Of course, you'll see that I've added a couple of crewmen, and these are simply Rogue Trader Vintage Imperial Guardsmen, although, of course, when they were released, they were Imperial Army, not Imperial Guard. And then the large antennas at the back, these are simply some lengths of copper wire. Now, given that we only had one view in the Rogue Trader rulebook, which is sort of that sort of angle, I have had to use a bit of artistic license in all the parts of the vehicle that I couldn't see. So, for example, on the rooftop, I've got some hatches here where crewmen were seen protruding from the vehicle in the image. I don't know if it was meant to be an enclosed forward section or not. This could perhaps have been thought to be open-topped like the universal carrier I suspect it is based on, but I've gone for the enclosed version that you see here. Also on the very back of the vehicle, although the image told us that there would be these two large antenna arrays, there was no other information, so I have added an exhaust pipe made from a bit of aluminium wire and a plastic tube, and then a cargo container that's just built from some more bits of plasticard. And so with all the details in place, this vehicle is now ready to be painted. So here is the finished tracked gun carrier based on the artwork from the Rogue Trader rulebook, and I've painted this in the colour scheme that I use for my Rogue Trader Vintage Imperial Guard. And to give you an idea of the exact size of this vehicle, I'll just bring in a Rogue Trader Vintage Rhino, and you'll be able to see that the Rhino is slightly wider. It is ever so slightly longer, but somewhat more squat in profile, and this really has a lot more internal volume for use as an armoured personnel carrier, whereas this is the dedicated gun carrier instead. And I'll finish off with this shot of how the tracked gun carrier may have appeared as part of a small Imperial Army force during the very early years of Warhammer 40,000, when vehicle kits weren't readily available and instead you had to either scratch build or convert them. And I hope you've enjoyed this look at bringing this piece of artwork from the Rogue Trader rulebook to life. Thanks for watching. Bye.